What is this telling me? Okay. Don't send me a bunch of messages right when I'm going live, YouTube. That is distracting and very difficult. Okay. I've got to fix my setup here. Okay, you guys, it's Friday. We were here on Monday. What were we talking about then? We were talking about Trello and Google Calendar and how I am planning and using, hi Melissa, using Google Calendar and Trello as my calendars and planners digitally for the month. Hi Katrina. So that is what I'm using. I'm going to be using a different digital system every single month of this year and showing you how I'm planning in those systems, how they work for me. At the end of the month, I'll do a review. And so right now we are really going into Trello. Hey, Anita. So Trello is like a longtime staple favorite of mine. I use it to organize my podcast episodes, do all of my planning for YouTube and Instagram. If you don't know about my podcast, you can find it anywhere you get your podcasts. It's called Live Well Anyway, and it's super fun. I've been podcasting for 8 years now, I think, which is crazy. But here we are getting things going on YouTube, and a big emphasis in that is the planning. So let's give just a teeny tiny bit of backstory here. I host Cohorts, which I may be turning into a course as well, but if you're interested in one of the cohorts, you can go to mackenziekappa.com/cohort to find out more about that. But I host planning cohorts, which basically take women from this state of total overwhelm in their lives to figuring out all the different pieces and what all is on their plate, and then mapping out a way to get those things done and get more control over their lives moving forward. So we start with a brain dump, and that is like the raw material that we use to then analyze their time and their schedule and their routines and all of that kind of thing until by the end of the cohort, which is 4 to 5 weeks long, depending, then they have this workable system to be using in their life. But the brain dump is so important. I think it's really vital because we, especially as busy women who have a lot that we're juggling, we're trying to hold so much in our heads at the same time. And a lot of times it's just too much. And we forget that the brain is a muscle and that it actually burns calories when we are really planning or trying to think about a lot of things or trying to learn things. The cohort is awesome. Yes, Katrina was in one of my cohorts. It was so fun. So when we are trying to put all of that energy into holding on to all of that information, it's actually like physically taxing on us. No wonder we get exhausted. It's just like when you were back in college and you would be studying for an exam. It's tiring because you're using your brain. So the more shortcuts that we can do to not have to be holding as much in our brain and actually getting those things out on paper or in a digital format actually lets us feel lighter. It's like a physical thing we can do to help reduce physical stress in our lives. And it's a mental process, but it actually allows us to do that. So I really like using Trello to be able to do a brain dump because you can really easily organize everything kind of once you get the raw material in there. You know, if you do it on paper, you're writing down all the different things in your head that you want to make sure that you're not trying to hold on to. You're writing down all the things, and we'll kind of get more into, well, what all do you include in a brain dump? Spoiler alert, everything. But you write all of that down, and then if you're writing it on paper, you have to rewrite it again if you then want to categorize everything and move it into different, subsections and areas to help you get a better view of it. But if you do it in Trello, you can either kind of start out with those categories, or you can do it all in one list and then really easily just pick up those cards and move them to where they need to be so that you can organize the information a little bit better. So I'm going to show you how we do that today. I'm going to have an example board of what I've used with a lot of ladies in our cohort and how to make that work. But I do want to mention, so what all do you put in a brain dump? You put down everything. Nothing is too small. Anything that you are trying to hold in your head, whether it's something emotionally tasking, it's a task that you have to get done, it's something that you've just been thinking about, a dream, a goal, like it can comprise anything that has been rolling around in your brain. It's just a way to get all the things on paper. Now, as I'm going to show you, I do prefer to categorize the things, and the categories are really based on your own life, what you've got going on. But some typical categories could be like your home, your kids, your job, anywhere you might be volunteering, your health, appointments that you need to make. Like, you can create any categories that work for you and your life. And then I'm going to show you how we actually break those down into even more categories. So I still don't have my fancy setup where I can stream and you can see me and I'm sharing my screen. So we're going to go old school, and I'm going to flip my camera around and show you my computer because that's where we're at. But hopefully you still get the point. Okay, I'm going to flip you around now. All right, my messy desk. Here is a typical client board that I would use for the cohort that I run. And so this is obviously flexible. That's another thing I love about Trello, is even if you are basing it off of somebody else's template or something like that, you can really manipulate it to work for you. So I have here an example list of a brain dump, and you could just go into this list here and add all the different things. And the way Trello works is that you have these cards. So you could say, I'm going to type with one hand, sorry, and already get it wrong. Make dentist appointment. Okay, so I've got that card in there. I could keep filling this in with all the different things. Or right from the start here, I could make different lists that I would put into categories. So I'm going to say home. We'll create a home list. And I'm going to move this list. See, Trello is so easy to use because you can just juggle things around really easily. So I'm going to make a home list. And then here I would write down all the different things that I am needing to do in my house right now. And then maybe I would make a list for kids. I'm going to move this over here. So I would go ahead and create different lists for all the different categories of my life. Sorry, I'm trying to hold this as steady as I can. All the different categories of my life, and I would put all the things into those two lists. Now, what I would do is I would actually go in here and I would make a second home list, and I would label it Mainstays. You could do this from the beginning, but sometimes it's easier to not be trying to worry about how you're categorizing things too specifically right from the start. You just want to get as much out of your head as you can to kind of start with. So I would have this list that is home. I would change it into one and done. All right, now I'm going to flip you around and I'm going to explain what the one and done and the mainstays lists are. Okay, I got to figure out my tripod here. I'm so sorry. We're gonna get a more professional setup. It's gonna be coming. So one and dones versus mainstays. I would do that for every single category that I had. What is a one and done versus a mainstay? A one and done task are a lot of times those things you've been procrastinating on, those things that you've just kind of been letting go, or they just kind of end up stacking up over time. But it's something that you need to get, hi Amanda, you need to get done just one time and it'll be over. Once you get that thing off your plate, it's off your plate. Or maybe it's not going to come around again for another year. It's just something that you can get done and be done with. A mainstay is something that is a mainstay in your life. It is something that repeats daily or weekly or maybe monthly. It's those little tasks. I think the house is a really great example of that. It is the vacuuming and the laundry and the dishes and those are the mainstays. Those are the things that are parts of, your in and out day to day of your life. Whereas a one and done project might be, you could also call it a project because it's just like you get it done and you're done. That could be, maybe you need to call on insurance, or like I'm about to need to renew my rent. And so I have to have the landlord come out and do an inspection. So I need to call and schedule that. That's a one and done thing. I don't have to think about that again until next year. It's not part of my daily life that I'm having to figure in there. And when you take all of that information for all of these different categories, and you split them into your one and dones and your mainstays, then you have this workable material to figure out how to make a plan to move forward. Because then a lot of those one and done things, you can just start setting aside time to check off the list, to just get them done so that they're off of your plate. Because so much of the time when we have all this overwhelm, it's from a lot of those one and done things that we just need to buckle down and do. And so once you know what they are and you've identified them, and you also know your mainstays, so you're able to establish a schedule or a routine for your life that you can work in those mainstays in a way that is realistic and manageable, which is a huge focus of our cohorts. But if you have that so that you don't have to keep, being like, well, I don't even know when I could get the entire list together, is overwhelming. It is so overwhelming. And then when you don't plug that list into your actual time, then you just have the information, but you're still like, but how do I get that done? So when you take the mainstays and you make a plan for what your days and your weeks look like, something that is manageable and realistic, like I said, that those are big focuses of the cohort, because it's senseless to try to, say, I'm going to have a 16-point cleaning system every single day. Well, that's not realistic for my actual life. And so we look at where you are right now, what your season is, how many things you do have on your plate, and what you need to juggle. And then we start actually visualizing your time and where you can put those things in. And then as you're doing that, as you're finding the places to put all of your mainstays, we figure out, well, what periods of time can you block out to start getting some of those one and done projects done? Maybe you need to block out an entire Saturday and just knock out a bunch of stuff. Or maybe you're gonna do it for an hour every morning until that list really gets whittled down and isn't so overwhelming anymore. That's how you can start to feel a little bit of relief in your life and not have so many things that are vying for your attention. When you really get in there, put it all down on paper or digitally in Trello, figure out where those pieces go, and then start plugging them into a schedule, it makes a huge difference. Trying to figure out what I am actually capable of is so hard for you. You always think you can handle more than is realistic. I think a lot of us have that problem, Amanda. And that is where I do think if you can have someone else come into your life and kind of have that bird's eye view perspective of what do you actually have going on here, like having somebody else be able to tell you, yeah, that's not real. That's not going to happen. Let's whittle this down more, because a lot of times we have to cut out so much more than we want to think. And especially if we have young kids or a lot going on, we get pie in the sky dreams about how much we can actually take on and accomplish. And when you have that third party perspective, somebody coming in and saying, well, maybe we need to try this a little bit differently. And I think also another great way, if you can't afford to have somebody else help you with that or whatever, a great way to kind of figure it out on your own is to plug those things in on an actual calendar. And that's where, if you go back to the video that I did earlier this week, where I'm using the combination of Trello and Google Calendar. If I was just using Trello, I would have the raw information, but I wouldn't have the schedule to be following to make all of those things that I have to do work. I do the figuring out of what the things are in Trello, and then I move them over onto my Google Calendar, which allows me to see a week at a time what my time actually looks like, because I color code all of those different calendars, and then I give them a time space for when I'm going to get those things done. If I don't do that, then I can think, oh yeah, I can get 17 things done today, but when I actually I'm like, well, how long is that thing gonna take? And how long is that thing gonna take? Even when you're doing your brain dump, you could go in, I actually have my cohort ladies do this a lot of the times, go in and say how much time you think each of the tasks will really take. Because if you put in those timestamps next to each of those tasks, then you even have more information to work on to figure out, okay, that task is probably gonna take me 10 minutes. That task is probably gonna take me 2 hours. And then you can figure out times to put them on your schedule. But as you start to move the pieces onto your Google Calendar and you can see your time, you can be more realistic with it, because you can be like, okay, well, I have 5 things that are each gonna take an hour today. I'm probably not going to be able to tackle 17 things. And when you actually put them in there and you give them an allotment of time, not that that is ruling your life. You don't have to let it be the master of you. It is a guide that you're trying to work towards, and it helps you to be more realistic about how much you can take on every day and how much time things are actually going to take. So those are my suggestions for how to fight your overwhelm by starting with a brain dump, using a tool like Trello that allows you to really easily move those cards around so that you can categorize things and see everything you're working with, why you're feeling so overwhelmed, what all is on your plate. And then once you know and you have it in black and white or color, all the things that are weighing on you, then you can break those things down into actual pieces and plans for getting them done. And you also, once you create that plan of where your time is going to go, you can have that sense of relief of, well, I don't need to deal with all these other things that are on the brain dump because I already know these are the things that I'm working on right now. And I have a different time scheduled to do these other things, but those aren't the focus right now. I don't need to let them weigh on me right now. Right now, I need to focus on what I actually have planned for today. And that is so freeing to know it's going to be taken care of. I don't need to think about it. You don't have to keep holding all those things in your head because they're being kept in your Trello board. You just have to do what you've planned to do and move forward with it. All right, like I said, if you want, I'm knocking around my desk. If you feel like some third-party help would help with this process, I would love to talk with you about possibly being in a cohort, or if you are interested in a course, I am working on possibly releasing one of those as well for this entire process. You could let me know which one you prefer or if that is something you're interested in. You have a tendency to underestimate how long things are going to take, and then getting entirely derailed when they take longer than expected. Yeah, you gotta go in, shoot high. Give yourself more time than you think it's actually gonna take until you get a better idea of how long things are actually going to take. And then, maybe even while you're doing things for a while, actually take down the amount of time it's taking you to accomplish that task. If you think the dishes take you 5 minutes, but they actually take you 30, pay attention to those things for a while. Be an observer of your life and where your time is going. Even get out your calendar and use a daily calendar, and instead of planning your day for a week, actually track how long the things you do take. That's another trick to be able to kind of get a better grasp on how long things are actually taking you. So if you want more help with that, you can go to mackenziekoppa.com/cohort. I would love to chat with you. I also love to connect with you guys in the comments and over on Instagram at @MackenziekOppa. You can find my podcast, Live Well Anyway, wherever you listen to podcasts. And be sure that you subscribe and like and push that bell for notifications so you know the next time that I release new content or go live. All right, you guys, I hope you have a wonderful Friday. Until next time, go be bold and gracious. Bye.